Hello and welcome to our presentation on preparing your family for emergencies. Luckily, most of us here in the East Midlands rarely have to face serious emergencies that affect our homes and families. However, they can happen, and they do happen, and they can happen anywhere at any time. Take for instance the Milton Road factory fire in Leicester. The date was the 7th of August 2014 and over 200 households and businesses had to be evacuated. Many residents were out of their homes for more than 8 hours, and some for much longer due to the severe damage that their homes suffered. In June last year, North West Leicestershire suffered unprecedented flooding to roads and properties as the result of torrential downpours, whilst just over the border in Nottinghamshire they experienced significant damage to the road networks as well as property. And last December, following Storm Desmond, parts of Lancaster were without power for up to 4 days. Not only were people left without power to their homes, but the mobile phone networks failed, shops had to shut, cash points were out of action, as were fuel pumps and traffic lights. These things could happen where we live, and the question is, how prepared would you be? The advice we're going to consider in this short presentation falls into 2 broad areas: being evacuated and unable to return home, and being trapped at home in severe weather. Now, there's a lot more information about this on our website, and we'll give you those details at the end. Let's think first about being evacuated and excluded from your home. If you are evacuated, it's likely that you'll be offered shelter in a nearby emergency centre. But what should you take with you if this happens? Well, the advice here is to have a pre-prepared list of some of the items you would want to take with you. Your grab bag list. The list should be kept somewhere prominent and easy to retrieve. You should also make sure you have a good sized hold-all style bag or something similar to that. If you ever need them, it's then simply a case of using the list, gathering everything you need together before you leave the property, and it means that you're less likely to forget the important things and the documents that you might otherwise miss in the rush. The things on your list will depend in part on your circumstances, but should definitely include basics such as mobile phones and chargers, house and car keys, wallets, purses, cash, bank cards, glasses and contact lenses, and important documents, passports, insurance certificate, driver's licenses, and a printed contact list, and that's a really important one in case you lose your phone or it stops working while you're away. If you have young children and babies, you might need to include a small supply of nappies and nappy sacks, infant formula and snacks, and some favourite books or pastimes to help keep the children occupied. If any of your members or your family members are dependent on medication, you'll need to include that too, or their prescription. But remember, don't go overboard. The list needs to be short and practical because you may only have a limited time to gather everything together, and you might have to carry your bags to the specified emergency centre. If you have pets, the advice depends on whether the evacuation is a precautionary short-term measure or whether there's imminent danger and the incident is potentially longer term. If you are likely to be able to return home soon, then your pets will be happiest if you leave them there. Make sure you leave them some food or water though. If danger is imminent, then it's likely you'll want to take them with you. The important thing is to take the items you need to keep your animals safe. For cats, that's likely to be a carrier. For dogs, you'll certainly need a sturdy collar and lead. And also, take a small quantity of food and treats, plus any medication they need, and probably some hygiene supplies too. If an incident happens overnight, it's probable that you'll all be at home together and able to respond as a family unit. But what if it should occur when the adults are at work and the children are at school or nursery? And what if the mobile phone networks become overwhelmed and you can't be connected by phone? You might find yourself unable to call the other members of your family through their work, schools and nurseries. Well, there's 2 pieces of advice that we think will help to ensure your family can make contact with each other during an incident. The first is to identify a family meeting point. This should be some distance from your home to make sure it's unlikely to be caught up inside a police cordon, and really somewhere that's comfortable in case you end up waiting for a while, but really importantly somewhere that you're all familiar with. It could be a library or a friend's house even, perhaps a cafe or pub, but somewhere that you all know. The other thing is to nominate an emergency friend, someone you all know to contact when you can, especially at times when you're struggling to get in touch with each other. So let's think about a different scenario now. There's severe winter weather and you're stuck at home without water. The pipes are frozen and there's no electricity because the power lines have toppled over. Well, it hasn't happened here for a while, but many of us can really remember this from years gone by, and we could face just such a scenario again this winter. It would affect the services that we all use and some of us really rely on. Shops are likely to be closed and home services will probably be suspended.
Part of being prepared is keeping a stock of emergency supplies. The advice is simple. It's really just a matter of keeping some emergency core supplies and a few items of backup equipment. So for instance, for drinking and cooking, a good quantity of bottled water, some non-perishable food items such as dry, tinned and UHT goods. If you're reliant on specific medicines or medical supplies, then make sure you've got some of those in your emergency store as well. For light, a number of wind-up or battery-powered torches and lamps. For cooking, a barbecue or camp stove, and please don't forget that these always need to be used in well-ventilated areas. And don't forget the fuel too, so a canister of gas or a bag of barbecue coals. You should have a wind-up radio, and this will help you keep in touch with national and local radio stations for weather reports and information on local emergency arrangements. Make a note of the frequencies for the radio stations you might want to tune into. And keep an old-style plug-in telephone in reserve. These will continue to work even when the power's off, whereas your modern cordless phones won't. This isn't an exhaustive list, and you might decide there are some additional items you want to include in your emergency store. But whatever you choose to include, keep an eye on the use-by dates, whether it's consumables or batteries and battery life, and rotate things so you use and replace them on a regular basis.
So that's the advice, well, some of it. But who should be putting your household emergency plan together? Well, ideally, you should all do it and work together to do it. Discuss your family needs for the grab bag. The children might come up with some really useful ideas and probably some comedy moments too. Make joint decisions as to who you choose as an emergency friend and where the family meeting point will be. There'll be better decisions if you all agree, and you're all more likely to remember them too. If everyone's been involved in the process, your children will develop a better understanding of the things that might happen in an emergency and the arrangements you have to make. For instance, for your pets, they're less likely to be anxious when the plans have to be used. Whilst the idea of being caught up in an emergency might be daunting to some, the act of preparing for such an event is constructive, and it's an interesting exercise that everyone can participate in. It can also be fun, but best of all, it'll ensure that you and your family are well prepared. So to briefly sum up, make sure your family is prepared for emergencies. In case you're evacuated or excluded from your home, know what to take with you in your grab bag. Have a printed list of the items you need. Only consider taking your pets if there's an imminent danger. They will be happier left at home if not. And make sure that all members of your family know the location of the family meeting point and who the emergency friend is. In case you have to weather out the storm at home, keep emergency supplies of water and non-perishable food items. Remember, keep an eye on any of the use-by dates too. Keep a number of non-electric lights and a radio. And again, don't forget to check the batteries from time to time. Make sure you have alternative cooking arrangements as well and a backup supply of suitable fuel. Treat emergency planning as a family exercise and ensure that everybody in the family knows the arrangements and understands the reasons why they are so important. So this is our household emergency plan. You can find this information and lots of other useful advice for residents on our website at www.llrprepared.org.uk. There's a toolkit and a template for building your own household plan, and you can also learn about the emergency planning arrangements of the emergency responders for Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland.
So that brings us to the end of this presentation. You can find further advice on the LLR Prepared website at www.llrprepared.org.uk. And should you have any questions, you can contact us via email at llrprepared@les.gov.uk. That's llrprepared@leics.gov.uk. Or of course you can phone us on 0116 305 6101. Thank you.